Gumbo is based on an African dish brought over by the slaves and then modified by the French settlers of Louisiana. Even though I've received quite a few requests for this dish over the years, I have always hesitated because I expected that there would be a great many recipes out there already. Boy, was I wrong. When I researched what was online, I was almost appalled. Even the recipe from Emeril Lagasse, celebrity New Orleans chef, it's atrocious. Gumbo is supposed to be a spicy, hot dish and have a unique, smoky, almost pudding-like mouthfeel that mixes with the rice. This is how to make it the right way. Although most gumbo recipes use volume for the measurements of flour and oil, you're really better off doing it by weight. I have 90 grams of flour here, 135 grams of olive oil, and also usually gumbo is not made with olive oil, it's usually made with less expensive vegetable oil. This will give it a little bit more character and a little bit more unctuousness, so to speak, in the final product. So I would suggest you use olive oil. I have a pan heating here on a medium heat. It's very important you do not rush making the roux. I'm going to add the oil first, and I'm going to let this get fairly warm before I start stirring in the flour. Okay, the oil is quite warm now, but not super hot because we don't want to burn the flour. This is a very, very important thing here. So we're going to begin stirring this in and letting it cook, still on a medium heat. This is 5 out of 10. And you have to be very patient with this. If you try to rush it by turning up the heat, you will not get a good result. This is the hardest part of making this dish. Really the only hard part of making this dish is the roux. This is the key to the whole thing. If you make a good roux, the dish will come out very nicely. If you make a bad roux, it won't be very good. Okay, so we're going to let this cook very slowly and stir it once in a while. In the meantime, I have the 90 grams of okra that were frozen. This is a frozen product that's been thawed out and dried. This is going to go under the broiler for a little bit. And actually, the name of the dish, gumbo, means okra in the African dialect that the slaves brought this dish over. Basically, it's combined with some French technique. But the original dish had no flour and oil in it. There was no roux. It was thickened entirely by okra, and that's why it's called gumbo, or gamba is the African word for okra. So this is going to go under the broiler. Not everybody does this, but this will give it more flavor, and it is actually fairly traditional for the old style recipes. The 19th century recipes always said to roast the okra before you put it in, but people seem to have forgotten to do that these days. So this is going to go into the broiler. Also, while this is going on, you've got your tomatoes, about 180 grams roughly of tomatoes, vine ripened. You want to cut these so that you've got flat surfaces, almost flat surfaces of the skin. So just cut them in half, and then half and half, and like this. So you end up with 8 equal pieces. And also, as you're trimming the tomatoes, you see any heavy, thick stem pieces like this, just cut those out and get rid of them, because those won't soften. It'll just be chunks in the final product. Now, also during this time, you're going to prepare the Trinity, which is 200 grams roughly of onion. I'm using about 50 grams each of red and green bell pepper. Typically, you just use a green bell pepper, but I like it this way. And 100 grams of celery. And also, often you don't see the addition of chili peppers in this, but you know, it's the way it was always when I made it in that area. Somehow it's not in recipes very often anymore. I'm not sure why. Take a vegetable peeler and run down the celery stalks too. And it's the interesting thing about this Trinity. It's almost the same as French mirepoix, which is carrot, onion, and celery. But the Cajuns are superstitious religious people who thought that carrots look like the horns of the devil because of the color. They're in the ground, they point downwards. carrots are not in Cajun cuisine. They're afraid of carrots. They think they're evil. So they substituted bell pepper for the carrots in this dish and often in just about every other dish. I don't know of any Cajun dish that's carrot based. Okay, this looks pretty good. Now these are just going to get chopped up. The stems will obviously be removed from the chili peppers. Now, according to Cajun tradition, you've got to finish 2 beers while you're making the roux. I'll explain about that in a minute. It's always a great thing about Russia, if you like beer, is there's so many really interesting beers you'll never see anywhere else in the world because they don't export them. This is the one that I started here. This is one of my favorite beers. It's barrel aged. It's a lager of sorts, but then it's aged in a series of barrels that contain various liquors like cognac and bourbon, and then mixed together in some kind of secret way. Really incredibly delicious. Nothing like any beer, exactly like any other beer I've ever tasted anywhere. Really good, and it's actually about $1 a bottle. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one. Okay, let's go take a look at that roux again. You have to stir the roux very, very often. Use a wooden spoon, don't use a metal spoon, and make sure that the roux does not burn. Keep the heat low. Turn the heat down from 5 to 4 as you're going. Now, the Cajuns believe that as soon as you finish your second beer, that this will be ready. It's really a myth. It doesn't work that way, of course. It depends entirely on time. Here's another beer. There's so many, it's like I don't even try them all because it's almost impossible. It's, every time you go to a store you find a beer you've never seen before that's made in Russia. So I'm going to give this one a crack here. Let's see if the Cajuns are right, if this is really going to be finished by the time I'm done with this beer. They don't seem to realize how fast somebody can drink beer though. I'll let the head settle for a second here. Okay. Give this one a shot. Very refreshing. Now let's take a look at that roux. What do you know, it worked. Now this is quite a dark brown roux. I could go just a little bit darker than this, but not too much darker. You want to get it to the point where it burns. That would be very bad. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just the tomatoes in there. This will slow down the roux from cooking, and it'll also do some serious chemistry with the skins of the tomatoes. You read volume 3 of my cookbook series, you'll know why. Okay, it's been about 6 minutes since I added the tomatoes. They're mostly melted in. Now I'm going to add all the rest of the vegetables. The heat is still very low right now. It's like a 2 or 3. But now that I've added the rest of the vegetables, I'm going to turn the heat back up to 6 out of 1 to 10. So just a little bit over medium. And we're going to begin cooking these. You want the vegetables to kind of melt into it too. And those are all the diced vegetables so far. We have that okra that went into the oven, rather under the broiler. We're going to deal with that in just a minute here. This is what you want to see. There's a little bit of browning on this. We're just going to give this a quick rough chop. The point here is you want these vegetables to soften. And cook in the roux. While this is cooking, I've chopped up the garlic coarsely. That's 30 grams of garlic. And I've set out the spice mixture. I've got about half a teaspoon of allspice, whole teaspoon of black peppercorns, whole teaspoon of oregano, and a whole teaspoon of cayenne pepper. This is going to get passed through electric spice mill first to make sure that there's no large particles in there. And when the mixture of the vegetables has been cooking for about 6-7 minutes, then I'm going to add the garlic to it. Here's the spices and the spice mill. I actually forgot to include the 2 teaspoons of cumin seeds in there, so there they are. And these things happen. As long as the recipe doesn't get made without it, then it's okay. Okay, it's up on just about 7 minutes now. Garlic goes in, and we continue cooking this fairly dry mixture. This is why there was more oil than flour in the beginning, to make sure that this doesn't turn into a paste that burns. Okay, keep cooking this. We're going to add the spices in just a couple minutes here. It's now been just over 2 minutes since I added the garlic. I'm adding the spices now, the ground spices. We're going to cook this together just a little bit, get everything incorporated here. The higher temperature here is going to help the spices release the flavor molecules inside of them. If I just pour in liquid now, I'll destroy that. So I want to cook it at a high temperature for a couple minutes. Now it's been about 3 minutes. I'm adding that 120 grams of passata tomato puree. This is an Italian one. That's what I usually use. And we begin cooking this together for a few minutes. We want to make this very intense and get the sweetness out of that passata. The heat's been on 6. I'm actually going to reduce it down to about 4 now during this cooking time, because I don't want to burn anything on the bottom, and it needs fairly frequent stirring. And normally you would use andouille sausage for this. Doesn't exist in Russia, but I have a spicy smoked, very smoked sausage that I'm going to use. In case you're in Russia, this is the type that I'm using. But you can substitute other spicy smoked sausages. That's the point here. And I'm just going to cut this up into sections and add it in just a minute right after the broth. Okay, I'm adding now. It's been about let's see, about 7 or 8 minutes of cooking time here. And now I'm adding chicken stock. That's a full liter. Hot chicken stock. It was on a back burner, staying warm. And now, section sausage. I'm going to bring this up to a simmer. Keep it at a slow simmer for at least 2 hours. This has to cook very slowly for a long time. That would be a lot of beers while this is cooking. And after about an hour and a half of it simmering, I've got parsley, a branch of sage, a good branch of thyme, and a bay leaf here. And I'm going to tie these up into bouquet garni here. And you end up with something like this. Here's that bouquet garni. I'm going to push down in there, and we're going to let this simmer for a little while longer now. It's now been about an hour since I added that bouquet garni. Go in, fish it out now. Discard this. Piece of sausage again with it. And got some bay shrimp here that were rinsed. Throw those in for the final cook. Crawfish tails would be better here, and usually you can get them, but for some strange reason right now they're not in any store in Russia. So typical here. Things come and go. There's been crayfish tail for sale in Russian stores for 10 years now. Now that I need them for a recipe, of course, they're nowhere to be found. That's okay. Bay shrimp will work okay. And give this about 5 more minutes, and then we're ready to plate it up. There's a condiment you cannot omit from this recipe, and that's Tabasco sauce. You know, gumbo without Tabasco sauce is like French fries without salt. It won't taste right, and this whole recipe is formulated on the assumption you're going to sprinkle some Tabasco sauce over it. I'm very pleased to announce the release of Volume 3, The Focus on Food Chemistry. I want to clear up a few things about these 3 volumes. First, they all contain completely different information. There's no duplication, they're not revisions. When I wrote Volume 1, I had 2.5 years of YouTube videos to cover. People had been asking me for the printed list of ingredients for all of those dishes, and so I obliged. There are recipes with stepwise directions and many tips offered throughout, as well as an extensive history of Russian cuisine over the last 1,000 years, but Volume 1 is very different from Volume 2 and 3. In Volumes 2 and 3, I only had about 9 months of YouTube recipes to cover in each, so I was able to provide stepwise directions for everything. In Volume 2, I included a lot of additional information about cooking and some simple examples of flavor chemistry to set the stage for Volume 3. While Volume 2 hopefully got you thinking about some of the processes that go on in cooking and how flavors are expressed and sensed at the molecular level, the topic was painted with pretty broad strokes to make it easy to digest, pun intended. Volume 3 is a milestone of the series, in which I've included an entire introductory course in food chemistry, which is why Volume 3 is about 70 pages longer than Volume 2. And if you just want the recipes, that's okay too. You don't have to read the first few chapters. But if you've ever been curious about what influences tastes and flavors and the rationale for deciding cooking times and temperatures and why things taste different when they're combined in different ways, this book will answer many of those questions. It also paves the way for Volume 4, which will be next year. If you want to know more about my adventures as a chef around the world and have some great laughs along the way, be sure to check out the video tour of my book, 40 Years in One Night. It's up on YouTube right now. Click the link. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.